How's it going, guys? So in today's tutorial, we are going to be making this abstract, kind of satisfying, kinetic, whatever loop that is just so fun. There's a lot of really cool things to learn in this. If you want to grab the project file, it is currently available on the Patreon, and we also released a new tutorial on the Patreon where we create this really cool cloth simulation, among tons and tons of other really cool tutorials. So if you want to check that out, linked in the description. But let's go ahead and dive straight into how to make this. So I'm using Blender 3.3. And let's go ahead and create this. So what you're going to need is to go to your add-ons, go to your preferences and add-ons and type in extra. Right here. Now click on extra objects. And that is going to allow you, if we go to hit Shift A and go to curves, you're going to have curve spirals. And that's what we want to use today. And we're going to use this one that starts with log logarithmic. Hoping I'm saying that right. Regardless, here is the base of the whole tutorial. So right now it's a circle, but what we can do is play with the height, and now it's doing what we want. And what you can do is bring up those steps to essentially subdivide it. We do want it to be really nicely subdivided. You can probably hear my cat jumping around in the background. So keep it nicely subdivided and then give it quite a few turns. This is the big one, so we're going to keep that there and then bring that height down. And this will be the really wide one. So what I'm going to do is you can also play with your expansion force, and that will make this one kind of go like a tornado shape. I don't really want that, so I'm going to keep it even and then bring up that radius. And honestly, let's give it another turn and then bring that height down again. All right, so this is what we're working with. Now let me give you a little bit of the theory behind this animation. Those turns are very important if you want your animation to look interesting and dynamic, because if you give each one of these curves, which we're going to add 3, the same amount of turns, then those objects going around it are going to behave the same way. And so you want one to take longer to go around than another, and that's going to give it that very random looking, very interesting effect that we really want to go for this animation. So on the really big one, I'm going to give it more turns. Looks like I gave it 3 turns, and that's going to make that thing go really fast, which it's going to really have some fun with motion blur. So we're going to go with 3 turns on this one, and then hit tab, and we are done. So that's the first one. And then what I like to do, and my cat is just insane today. What I like to do is take this one and give it a little bit of an interesting look, because right now it's very just perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit tab, and then we're going to be in edit mode here, and you can actually select different vertices, and then I'm going to select this proportional editing tool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit G and then use your scroll wheel, and you can actually have some fun and do that. And that's really going to give this just an interesting, almost by hand look to this. And then let's go ahead and add another curve. So Shift A, curve spirals, logarithmic, if I'm saying that right. And then we're going to bring that radius in. I'm going to give it 1 less on the turns. And then, of course, just bring that height up. And then there we go. And then we shouldn't have too much intersection with the objects as well when we're dealing with it. And then maybe we can play with that expansion. Nah, we're going to leave it. All right. So, all right. And then maybe we do need to turn this to Bezier. Bezier, who knows? Now we have that. Let's go ahead and add one more. And curve, logarithmic. And then make this one really skinny. And 3 turns, and of course that height needs to come down to match everything. Boom. We have now created this, and we'll bring that radius in again. All right, we've now created the base of what we're working with. So what I'm going to do now is give these a little bit of geometry, and I also want to give this one a little bit of a little interesting look. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit, maybe bring this one up a little bit, and maybe bring this one out, and I'm hitting G to move it around. All right, we've created this. And I'm going to hit the tilde key and go to the front just so we can see everything. Good. All right, so let's go ahead and give this a little bit of geometry. So click on them, and you're going to see this little curve button right down here. And then go to geometry and go to depth and make it, however thick you want it to be. And then click on this guy. We're going to do the same thing, bring up that depth. And this one in the middle, also bring that depth up. Now, that one's definitely too thick. All right, so now we've created our maze, our little weird thing. What we can do now is start modeling our object. So Shift A, Mesh, and we're going to get a UV sphere. And then I'm going to hit Tab. We're going to go to Face Select. And then I'm just going to go and click this, and then I'm going to hit C. And I'm going to go ahead and just select all of these. We're going pretty far out because we want a pretty sizable hole in these objects. And then what you do is you right click to get out of that dialog, hit X and click faces, and then do the same exact thing down here. Hit C and select all of those faces, right click, X, faces, boom. Now we have that. I'm going to hit Tab again, hit A, right click, subdivide, bring the smoothness up and subdivide it one more time if you'd like to. And then what we're going to do now is go to the modifiers, add a solidify, which is going to be down here, and then bring that thickness pretty high up. We're going to add a bevel, and then you can bring those segments up, and then you can play with your bevel amount. Right now, we can just go ahead, right-click, shade smooth, and we are done modeling our object. I'm going to go ahead and scale it down a little bit, something to be right about here. Control A, apply that scale. All right, so let's go ahead and attach this to the big curve. So the way we're going to do that is first, looks like when I applied scale, that solidified just brought it way in, so you can just bring it in something like this. All right, so let's go ahead and attach this guy to here, and that's going to be done with constraints. So what you'll do is go down here to the Constraints tab, Add Object Constraint, Follow Path, Target, and Spiral 1. Looks like that's going to be the big one. You can plug and play if you messed up on a few. And then we're going to go ahead and click on, we're going to bring this over so we can read everything. Follow Curve, and then what you want to do is just kind of look at it and hit R twice to rotate it freehand. And we want it to be able to point here. And what we did when we clicked follow curve is now when we play with that offset, it's going to follow it properly. And then now I'm just going to go ahead and bring that thickness in a little bit until it starts to collide with my curve here. Looks like it works both ways. Back to constraints. And that is how you get that to work. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift D on that and bring one down here. And then what you can do now is hit Shift D on this guy. And then on the target, go ahead and pick this one. Now we have him on the middle one here. And you can probably hear my fans kicking on now. Hit Shift D, bring it down, hit Shift D again, and then select the Spiral 002, which is the last one. And he's the one on the small one in the middle. Shift D, bring it down, and voila. We have our whole scene. Now, we're done with the essential, the first modeling and rigging essentially section. Now, the difficult part is getting this to actually animate in a loop, and it was pretty challenging for me when I first tried to do it. I've never had to loop something like this. Typically, my loop theories stay within like a box or whatever. So this one was challenging, but I figured it out. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to hit the tilde key and go to the front, hit Shift A, get a camera, because we definitely need to get our camera so that we know what to add and take away from the camera view. And then I'm pulling back here, and then I'm going to go to the camera view. You can also hit 0 to go to the camera view, and we have it. We're here. I'm going to hit G and middle click, but we don't want to see is the end caps here, and I don't like that he's so close. So I'm just going to hit G and move it out of view. There we go. All right. We're now ready to animate this guy. What I'll do is kind of bring it back a little bit more. Cool. All right. So let's just go ahead and bring all of our objects to the bottom of each of their sections. And we'll bring him to the bottom. So go ahead and just bring all of yours out of the camera view straight to the bottom of each of their curves to set them to get ready to go around their loop. All right, so they're all ready here. Now what we need to do on each of them is get one object to be in the dead center of each of your loops. And that'll be kind of something you eyeball. And so we're here in the middle of this one. What I like to do is just count. So 1, 2, 3. So it looks like the middle is probably right about here. And here's the loop theory. And the number one theory around loops is the beginning and end have to be exactly the same of your animation for it to loop. That's the only rule. So essentially, this guy is going to go up, and the guy below it is going to stop here. So this guy's going to start here and go to the end. This guy, he's going to go to the end and stop exactly, precisely, where he started, and that will create a seamless loop. Now, if that doesn't make any sense, just follow along, and it should. So it looks like the right middle here is 60. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and Control-C and copy that. I'm going to bring up my timeline. We do need to go in our preferences and make sure our our animation default interpolation is set to linear right here. So now that we're here at frame 1, we need to go back to frame 0. I'm going to give myself 80 frames. I believe that's how many it took last time I did this, but you can add as many as you want. Fewer frames makes a faster animation. More frames makes a slower animation. So we are here at what I'm hoping to be the dead center of the animation. Right over here, I'm going to click keyframe, go to frame 40, and get him right out of camera view. Right there. And then we'll see. Nice, that's a pretty good speed. Now we'll take the guy that is on the bottom, which is right there. That guy, we'll go back to camera view. And again, remember, we copied that precise number. So we're going to go to frame 40. Again, click on that guy. We're going to hit Control. We're going to click keyframe here, go to the very end, and hit Control V to paste in that -60. And what's going to happen now, I'm going to turn off my gizmos up here, and if we press play, it is going to be a seamless loop. Now you can add 3 if you want to make it more interesting, but that is the first one. But again, seamless loop. Kind of boring, but it will be more interesting once we add more objects. So let's go ahead and deal with this big guy here in the back, the really big loop. That one is going to be super, super fast. So we need to find our dead center. So 1. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to count right till he's right out of camera view. 1, 2, 3. Oh, ran out of space on my mouse. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to say the center might be right there. That's my guess. Let's hope I'm not wrong. Maybe there. I'm going to say it's there. We'll see. This is all plug and play. You can figure it out and fix it later. So again, copy that number there. Click keyframe. Go to frame 40. And get it right out of camera view, which is right there. Click that. And then get him on the outside. And then start exactly at frame 40. Go to the end and Control V, paste, and we should start to have a very cool looking animation. All right, now we're using 2 objects here, and it's kind of predictable, definitely very predictable loop. And you could add a 3rd object to this, and it'll slow down the animation and make more objects be visible at the same time. So if you want to do that, you can kind of figure out that loop theory there if you'd like. And what we'll do is we'll do that. We'll add 3 objects on this center one and show you how to actually pull that off. And if you want to do it, you certainly can. And it's a good thing to add 3 objects on this one because this one should be the slowest out of all of them. So I'm going to hit Shift-D and add another. So we'll put this guy here in the middle. And again, it has to start and stop at the same point. So essentially this guy is going to go to the middle. This guy is going to start at the very beginning and do the whole thing. And the 3rd guy is going to stop here. And that is how you add 3 objects instead of just 2. So we'll just do that. I'm going to go ahead and Control-C, copy that. And we can go back to frame 0 again. Click that. Go to frame 40. Actually, no, it needs to be 2, 4, 6, 8. So the perceived middle would be like something like that. So instead of doing the middle, we need to cut it up in 3. So 1, 2, 3 essentially. So bring this guy all the way up here. Keyframe. And then we're going to start right here, take this guy, and we're just going to bring him right about, I guess, something like this. This is not an exact science. Go all the way to the end. And then we do need to go ahead and copy that number, this guy. I can't remember if I did it. Control-C. And then again, we're going to go right here maybe? I don't remember where it stopped. Where does he stop? 55, okay. Then we'll hit this guy, keyframe, go to the end, paste that, and if I did it right, this will be a loop on the guys in the middle. They're definitely different speeds, but I think that gives it a little bit of character, honestly. And it really just kind of breaks up that whole system. So what you could do is if you want to add more objects in the middle, it definitely will make it more busy and more interesting to look at. But that's the theory. That's how you get the loop aspect of this animation to work. What we're going to do next is light it, shade it, and export it. All right, so now we're going to jump into shading and lighting. Now, if you've seen my original animation, there's two main materials, a really cool terrazzo material and a very simple wood material. And I got those from the real-time materials add-on. Specifically over here, it was the version terrazzo. And I'm going to apply that really quickly. You just add that with one click. Oops, that was added to the wrong thing. So add that there, and then I kept the colors the same. I believe I added a little bit of pattern gap and then added more tiny pieces. If you want, you can even add some missing ones to give it more of that terrazzo vibe. And then the wood was gotten from the basics, the basic wood, which this one is fun because you can go ahead and add just whatever color you want to the wood as well. So it's really cool and really simple. Now, if you've never heard of the Real-Time Materials add-on, it is a pack of over 200 of these really cool, very powerful procedural materials, and you can just add them. And you can just add them with one click, compatible with Eevee and Cycles. I love the add-on. I've been using it for over a year. I made it a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, and it's been awesome. But if you don't want to get the add-on or you don't have it, that's totally cool. We're going to make some more simple versions of these materials. We can't recreate them because that would take a really long time. They're very complex, adding a lot of control, all that stuff. But also, you can add literally whatever material you want. You don't have to follow exactly what I do. I noticed when I made these metallic and these glass, it was a very cool look. I almost went with that. But let's go ahead and hop over to shading and create some materials. So I'm going to show you how to make a very simple looking wood material in case you do want to kind of get close to the look that I had. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and get a color ramp, Shift A search color ramp, plug that color straight into the base color. And then we're going to go ahead and get in a noise texture. It's very simple, a very hacky way to make a wood material. Hit Control T with the Node Wrangler add-on, comes with Blender by default, and plug in the object coordinate and plug the value into the color ramp. And that is the white noise node. Shift A search, noise texture. I don't like that if I type in NO for noise, it puts white noise first. I think that's totally ridiculous. But that's a complaint for another day. So we're going to crunch in these two pieces right here. And then we're going to go ahead and bring that detail to 12. And then also we're going to bring that roughness up a little bit. And then the magic to making this look like wood is your scale. And you could just stretch it just like that on whatever axes you think looks believable. And X doesn't look like it works out. Definitely, I think it is the Z axis. And then you can also play with your scale to get it less or more wood looking. And you can also rotate it as well. So you can get that rotation, but it just kind of looks sporadic and random. Now, it's hard to say, hey, this looks like wood. So we need to start adding color to this to sell it more of a wood look. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit the in panel just for a reference. I'm going to go to my wood materials here. And I'm going to use, all right, so try to eyeball that color there. That's from the real-time materials. I also like to use it for references. So brown is relatively over there, and we can bring it down. Oh, I nailed that. I got pretty close. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the hex code from this, and we're going to go ahead and put it there, Control V, and then just bring it dark, but I don't want it to be pure black. All right, there we go. And then we can go ahead, Shift A, get a bump node. And then we're going to put this noise texture with a color ramp. Plug this here. Plug that there. And plug the bump straight into the normal. All right, so distance at 0.1. And then you can actually crunch this in We're going to crunch in the white portion so it kind of digs in. Now we have that really wood, very classic wood look. All right, so now we have the wood here. We can quickly just go ahead and add something interesting with a Voronoi material. Voronoi texture, so VOR, Voronoi texture. Get a color ramp for some color. And then hit Control T again, and put that object there, color there, base color there. All right, and then we can scale that up and bring your color ramp in. And then we have very simple material. Maybe bring that up a little bit. I do want to go ahead and get smooth F1, and that's going to allow us to have a gap in between some of these, and then bring that smoothness in just enough where you can kind of goof with it. Now they're all gapped out. So now we have kind of a mock terrazzo material. And then I'm going to bring this to more of a beige. There we go. And then this, we're going to get a nice blue. All right, cool. Very quickly added that. We can also activate the bump material here if you want as well. Bump. Plug that into the normal. And then plug the color into the height. I was zoomed really far out there. And then you can just bring that strength down. That adds a little bit of interest. And then I'm just going to bring my roughness up a little bit so that it's not super distracting. And then, of course, we can add a color ramp if that bump is too obnoxious, which it kind of is. And you can crunch that in just so that those guys kind of eat into the material if you'd like. And we can also invert that bump to, there we go. I like the color to kind of eat into it. Now here's the fun part. What you can do is select everything, select all the objects you want to have a material on them, Control L, materials, and that's going to apply that material to all of them. Same thing here. Control L, apply materials. There we go. Now everything has that wood material. So now we have this. Let's just go ahead and get a plane, hit RX90 to rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees. Scale it up, hit 0. I'm going to add a simple yellow material to that. Now we're cooking. So let's go ahead and light this and be done. So very simple lighting setup I added. What I'm going to do is scene world, scene lights here. It's probably there for you by default. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get a light and get a spotlight. I'm going to hit S to scale it down, hit G to move it up. I'm going to hit R twice to rotate it. In fact, let's bring it over here a little bit, hit R again to rotate it. I'm going to hit 0 to go back to my camera view. Give it a power of 10,000. Area lights tend to need a lot of power. We're going to bring that radius up to make it nice and smooth. Something like that. And that's going to give you a nice shadow, but still give it a hard shadow over here, which is relatively what we're looking for. And then we're going to go ahead and get another light, an area light, bring it above, scale it up pretty significantly. I'm going to change the shape to a disc and give the power of like 500, maybe a little bit more. And so now we have a really bright scene. It's really bright for what I like. I'm just going to go ahead down here, click the camera icon. We're going to go to color management and bring that exposure down a little bit. That's going to give it this really nice look. And if I press play, we are done. The last thing I'm going to do is click on motion blur, and that's super important. Now I want to go ahead and render out one frame of this. I'm going to give myself 300 samples and hit the render button. All right, you can hear my fans kicking on now. And this is how it's going to look with your motion blur. It's just going to look really cool, really satisfying, really just cool, interesting. Oh, bunch of words. But we're done. What I'll do is I'll show you how to export this now. Click on the printer icon, select the resolution you'd like to use. I'm going to keep it at 24 frames a second. That's going to give you a nice motion blur. Definitely use a PNG sequence. So go ahead and save it in a new file. Make a new file and select that to save all of your PNGs in there. Or you can do an MP4. And we're done. You'll just hit render animation, and you'll be done. That's it. That's how you create this. It's really fun. It's really simple. I think there's a lot of cool tools here that you can apply to a bunch of different ideas. But with that being said, that is the tutorial. Again, if you want to check out real-time materials, that is in the description. And I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thank you for checking that out. If you really like these kind of satisfying, weird tutorials, I have another one relatively similar to it. That teaches you a bunch of other cool tricks and all that. So if you want to check that out, you can hit that. Thank you for watching.